I know, it's not the best way to go. So then why do so many of us, particularly men, go through with it? That's at least a question that never fails to pop up, even with the dramatic increase in the number of suicides since 2020. And what that simply means is that we're clearly ignorant of something about suicide, which, to be fair, really isn't your fault, because this gap of ignorance really isn't something that can be narrowed by simply reading about it. Instead, it's something that you actually have to feel to understand. It's something that you have to experience for yourself. And so that is what I hope to give you in this video. So come on, I gotta show you something. The year is 2018, and we're in a hotel in Kaisersberg, France. The exact time is uncertain, but it's definitely after nightfall. And the hotel guest behind this door is none other than the world-renowned chef, Anthony Bourdain. If you're familiar with his life, then you know that this night will be his last, because over there in the bathroom, that is where he's preparing to take his last breath. And still, for the life of you, some of you can't even understand why.
Anthony Bourdain had the greatest job that show business ever produced. This nigga flew around the world and ate delicious meals with outstanding people. That man, with that job, hung himself in a luxury suite in France.
So why would he do it? If you're one of the thousands of people who've typed that question into Google, you've definitely gotten a logical explanation. But that kind of explanation with vague notions of depression, that only gets you so far in giving you a full understanding of what happened, hence the stained confusion around suicide. So instead of me wasting my breath saying something similar, let me take you back to the States and show you why this happened. The year is now 2008, and this is a house in Claremont, California. The man beside me writing is the famous novelist David Foster Wallace, and at the moment, he's working on a private letter to his wife, and sadly, this will be the last thing that he puts down on paper, because within the next 30 minutes, he'll take a rope with him out to the back porch, and you know the rest. So what we have here again is something that utterly baffles you. How could a man like David Foster Wallace take his own life when he seemingly had so much going for him? And even if he didn't have so much going for him, he still had his wife and family, and so how could he do this to them? You had to be so selfish, right? Selfish. That's the word that many of you use to describe it. Well, if that is you, with all due respect, you simply don't understand what it is to have mental illness. So here, let me show you what I mean. Let me finally show you why this happened. It's an analogy that David Foster Wallace came up with himself. The psychologically depressed person who tries to kill himself doesn't do so out of, quote, hopelessness. And surely not because death seems suddenly appealing. No. The person in whom its invisible agony reaches a certain unendurable level will kill himself the same way a trapped person will eventually jump from the window of a burning high-rise. Make no mistake about people who leap from burning windows. The fear of falling remains a constant. The variable here is the other terror, the fire's flames. When the flames get closer, falling to death becomes the slightly less terrible of two terrors. It's not desiring the fall. It's terror of the flames. And yet nobody down on the sidewalk can understand the jump. Not really. But wait a second, does it have to be like this? The year is 1999, and that 20-something-year-old is Tim Ferriss. He's currently taking a year off to polish his final thesis, the most stressful assignment for any Princeton student concerned for their GPA. But the books he's been reading for the past few weeks, they're not on the Japanese language, his chosen field of study. They're on how to commit suicide. At this point, obsession has taken over, and he's well past the point of deciding. He's basically here in the process of ending his own life. As Tim himself recollected, I was in full-on planning mode. But then fate throws Mr. Ferriss a life raft. He snaps out of the trance-like state after getting an unexpected call from his concerned mother. And now, 5 best-selling books and 900 million downloaded podcasts later, the world is better for it. Years after his near-suicide attempt, Tim would write a blog post about this experience in hopes that it would help others with similar struggles and/or suicidal thoughts. I've added that article in the show notes below if you want to check it out. But the main thing to understand about all the points he lays out is this: they are proactive, meaning that if you wait till this point, you're most likely definitely too late. And even if you wait till you're here, or even here, you're still probably too late. Instead, you need to act before the plan is set in motion, when you're still struggling to get out of bed, or when negative thoughts about your self-worth are arising more frequently. Now, I say all this to really highlight the nature of mental illness and its link to suicide, which is that for the vast majority of the time, when someone does commit suicide, it's practically out of their control, much like someone being compelled to jump out of a burning building. So if you've never personally suffered from depression, if you've never felt the flames hot behind you, then please imagine that scenario for yourself. How would you react? How would you feel being trapped by flames? Can you understand how that might be a terror way worse than falling? My hope is yes anyways. I hope that through watching this video and getting a better understanding of the nature of suicide, that we can at least find a little bit more compassion for those who have suffered, who are suffering, and who will suffer in the future. And if that is you right now, if there's one last thing I'd leave you, it's this: that no darkness lasts forever.
Your hand on his arm, he stacked chalk.